Hello all. Um I would like to thank our prestigious panel members for attending this session and taking us forward. I would like to introduce each one of them individually. Firstly, we have Mr. Vikas Chadha. He is the Executive Director and CFO at Berggruen Hotels Private Limited, a CA and cost accountant with 20 years of experience. His previous employers include people like Tata Tea and Thomas Cook. Next we have is Mr. Kapil Krishan, a chartered accountant with 23 years of experience and currently the CFO at Manappuram Finance Limited. Next to him we have Mr. Arjun Arikeri. He is the AVP at Multiples Asset Management Company, and he's a management grad from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. The theme for this session is getting future ready, and the topic is 5 functional skill sets that every finance professional should acquire to turbo boost one's career path. So on the same, I would now like Mr. Vikas Chadha to share his thoughts.
Okay, when you talk about skill sets, I think more important is to have certain qualities. And the quality which is of primary importance today, everything is now becoming very entrepreneurial. The whole way in which you look at business is very entrepreneurial. So I think even finance professionals will have to look at the way they actually are employed and the way they are going to be participating in the whole business in a very entrepreneurial way, in whichever field they are working in. And from there comes the skill set. So when you are entrepreneurial, you will actually need to have skill sets around, maybe have more initiatives. So when you talk of initiatives, you'll have to could be things on developing skill sets around technology. That's a platform which is now really gaining pace. And finance professionals by nature are involved because technology is in working in conjunction with finance. The other area which you need to also you be focused about is on innovation, because innovative uses of the current resources and optimizing them is one key area in which a finance professional is adding value. And innovations can happen in every particular function in which they're working. What happens is when you actually join an organization, that's from past experience, you actually work in a very limited scope of work. And you start feeling that what's my role in the organization. So if you are typically in an entry level, you join in a payables department or you don't receivables, and you feel that's my limited scope of work. Am I actually contributing? What's the overall picture? But if you look at the entrepreneurial nature of work and if you actually look at the bigger picture, you are able to add value in each function, even in the limited scope which you're working on. So if I've seen people who work in a particular section, but they add value. Like if they're doing payables, they've added innovative ways of paying. They have been made more customer focused, and they made customer acquisitions and made a very important department for the company. So I think that's the skill set which they'll have to start focusing on, though whatever functions you're acquiring. The third area which is now getting important is teamwork, because team alignment is the most critical, and we as finance professionals have to work across cross-functional teams, and most of the times they are expected to take on a leadership role in the teams, because that's where the budgets are controlled, that's where the planning is happening. So that's the direction leading part of the structure. So in a way, team alignment, teamwork, understanding other cross-functional teams and getting the point of view across is going to be critical. And the fourth and the fifth, actually the final thing which I would suggest to everyone is common sense, because common sense is supposed to be employed across. So when even if you're working in a particular department of the company, when you work across cross-functional teams, the common sense and the inputs which you apply will go a long way in achieving a target. So you need not be restricted to your particular area of work. So these are the things which are now catching up. And I think inherently that's what's happened earlier. Like when you were doing a comparison between an MBA and a CA professional, the CA professional, typically when you look at the training model of a CA professional, it is more focused around audit. So the first 3-4 years you spend on an audit. And when you actually join the industry, you start focusing around a similar way. So you take the first 2-3 years to even get acclimatized to the whole idea of whether now you're no longer auditing, you need to now value add, you need to change. Which is very different from the way a MBA course would run, which would be more towards problem solution. So that's the key change which is now coming in, and which is where the finance professionals will now start looking at these function areas and start adding value.
Thank you for sharing your insightful thoughts. Mr. Krishan, if you would like to add your views on this topic.
Yeah, hi. Basically, I think I'm going to make some points which were not mentioned, luckily. What I would suggest is that as CAs, our basic training is very inward looking. You know, we tend to focus a lot on just our function, what we are focusing on. And as you aspire to become a CFO and take on a leadership role, as Mr. Balaji mentioned, you know, you have to look at value propositions. So I would really urge the younger professionals to get a good understanding of the industry perspective. You should know who are the key peers, what is happening in the sector, what are the trends. I'm sure as professionals you would be reading the financial press every day. So any industry news that comes up on your sector or your company, you should be aware of it. You should be going through your company website. I know many people in the finance department may never even see their own company website to know what's happening in the outside world actually. Apart from seeing the industry trends, you should have a keen eye for the value of the company. Ultimately, if you become CFO, you have to create value, as Mr. Balaji very well mentioned. So for that, you have to know what are the valuation parameters firstly for your sector. Every industry has a different specific parameter. I am in the finance sector, so it is price to book value. If it is in a FMCG company, it may be free cash flow. You must try to see analyst reports. See, because analysts have a very good outside view on the company. And you must get hold of analyst reports, how they view the company, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of the company, so that when you become CFO, you can work on adding value basically. And ultimately, shareholder value comes from the valuation. So, looking at the valuation parameters, looking at the sectors, looking at the trends, what are the new products coming, new industry, new segments that are coming in, that I think will help you create value when you become CFO. The other thing is, many people I've met, if you ask them who is your chairman of your board, it will be, 50% will not answer that question. You should have again, that's part of taking a macro view. Be aware of who is your board of directors, who is the audit committee chairman. When you become CFO, you will have to deal with these people. So you should get familiar with who are the names, what are their backgrounds, at least know who they are. So that I think also is something that gets ignored very often. The other thing I urge people to know is to understand markets. When we are inward looking, that is something that is largely ignored. And suppose you become CFO, you have to raise capital for the company. You must understand debt and equity markets both, because you'll have to deal with those investors. And that is one of the big scale-up skills that has to be built up. And it is very easy. The Economic Times is the Bible for everything. You just read that first page to last page, you don't need anything else. So all these I think are very important parameters. And also, try to get a diversity in terms of the business that you are in. Suppose your company is trying to set up a new business. It is a huge opportunity to try to get into that. Because firstly, you could become CFO of that new business. You will also learn something new about a new sector, a new area, and it will help you hone your skills. So, trying to be part of special projects, new businesses, I think these will also go a very long way. Suppose there's a ERP project, IFRS project, you must be part of all these new things. So that will keep your knowledge base also updated. And of course, I think the next topic, you must be in a good sector ultimately. If your sector is not doing well, no matter how good a person you are, there will be a stagnation. Thanks.
Thank you. Truly an interesting take on the subject. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, sir. Arjun, I'm sure you will have your 2 cents worth to add on this, please.
No, sure, Sean. I have the difficult task of coming up with newer skills beyond what Vikas and Mr. Krishan has mentioned. I can only talk from my experience. Having spent, I'm an engineer converted into a a person who got into finance and then spent time in investment banking, credit rating, and then finally private equity. One thing that I think holds you in stead, good stead throughout, no matter where you are, is sticking to first principles. When I say sticking to first principles, there are two ways you can do your work. One is you can get through all the steps that you need to do in a day, get done and go home. Or the other way is to think about everything that you do as to why you do it. What is the relevance of it in the larger picture of what your company is trying to achieve, your stakeholders are trying to achieve, and so on. Which is what we look for when we invest in CFO. So very early in my career, I used to hear some of my MDs say that he's an accounting CFO or he's a business CFO, and I always wondered what it meant and what is it these people want, because they seem to want Superman CFOs who can do everything, which is pretty much what the world is looking for today. So in terms of if I were to list down the skills, I would start by saying first thing I think is you should stick to first principles, understand first principles well. That is when you'll be able to move across sectors, across projects, across functions, and so on. Second thing I would touch upon is attention to detail and hard work. I can quote an example of very early in my career. I had the opportunity of being in this presentation where our bank lost almost $1 million in fees just because there was one error in the pitch book which we were making to the client, and he was so put off that he didn't want to talk to us after that. So credibility is very difficult to build in this industry. The Nestle example is another example where you can build credibility over decades and lose it in a second. So I would urge that people in this industry, it is so competitive. There are so many people out there to talk against you that it is very important to maintain to keep up the hard work and to maintain attention to detail and integrity in this world. I would then want to talk about presentation and communication as a very important skill. So when I started my career, I used to make 10-15 minutes presentation to my bosses, and they would come out of it saying I didn't understand anything. The reason was because I would start from level 5, and I would assume that they all understand what I understand about the industry, which is not true. Which is when I started reflecting and understanding what is it that people want when they talk to you. It's very important to put yourselves in the shoes of the other person and understand the context in which you're interacting with him, and start from try to address the problem that he's trying to solve out of meeting you. So this is a very important skill set, I think, in the finance world, because invariably you will be communicating with investors, your operations teams, your competitors, the regulators, and so on. So it's very important that you build presentation skills also and communication skills as you go in this industry.
Thanks, Arjun. Great understanding on the topic, and thanks for sharing the same. Mr. Chadha, I would like to ask you, over and above the skill sets that you mentioned, how important is soft skills necessary for a finance professional? Because at the end of everything, every employee needs to have them. So how important is it for a finance professional?
Absolutely, it's critical to have the necessary soft skills, because when I said teamwork, actually it's more to do with the soft skill part of it, because as Arjun was just mentioning, it's very difficult when you deal with a group of people who are diverse. So the level at which maybe your understanding of a topic will be very different from their understanding, and vice versa. So the soft skill and the whole alignment of the team towards the target, the communication part of it, where you're actually able to communicate what you want to drive at. Basically, the idea is everyone wants to go towards the same direction. Everyone's interests are aligned. So when the company performs well, your bonuses are better, your salaries get improved, everything is better. So everyone's aligned. It just happens that there is obviously clashes which happen within organizations depending on the department or functional requirements. So sales may have a different link to the way it wants the business to function, to go ahead, whereas a finance may want to controlling part to control these outstandings or debtors. So the whole alignment and the soft skill part comes very handy, because that's where you actually are able to align with the other departments. You're able to convince, and there's a trust which keeps building. You need to build a trust. You need to be the person to go to in the organization, and that only happens. It doesn't happen with designation. I've seen people at a level when they just are freshers and they join the organizations, but people still want to go to them because they perceive that these are the guys who will give me a solution to the problem. And I've seen very senior level guys, maybe a guy who has handled tax and been 30 years in the organization, but the person is not approachable because they know, when you go to him, he's just going to give you the 20 constraints on why this can't be done without providing a solution. So it's very critical that we understand that this is where the business is. These are our customers. At the end of the day, finance is a back office. So it's you have a customers set which is more internal. though now with all the investor relations, you're very outward looking and you do a lot of external marketing as well. But primarily 50% of time is spent with internal customers, and that has to be a point where people should come to you as a reference. People should trust you, and that only happens to defined soft skills and communication power.
Arjun, your thoughts on the
No, I
soft
think
skills?
soft skills as a skill set is something we underestimate, at least early in the career you underestimate, and as you grow you realize that this is probably the only thing that matters. Because as an individual there's only so much you can achieve. At the end of the day you need a team, you need an organization. Sooner or later you will have the urge to expand your own activities from what you do on a daily basis to a full expanse of finance. As an investor I want to expand my horizon. I want to understand where is the capital coming from. I want to understand, I want to build relationships with my companies. As Vikas said, I think being trustworthy, being true to the people that you are interacting with is probably the only mantra there that I can suggest. And it is something that can come from within. It is something that cannot that I don't think can be built by practice. It is a nature of a person, and people who excel in soft skills and relationship skills ultimately are the people I think who go out to build large organizations and large businesses. As
Very well said. Kapil, you would like to share something?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that if you want to go further up to be CFO, you have to have very good soft skills. You have to have very good communication skills, because if you're going to be communicating with equity analysts, with debt investors, they have to believe in what you're saying. You have to build that credibility for the company. And that will come if you have good soft skills on how to communicate, and people should believe you. I mean, as was said, you have to have the integrity, you should be able to project that. And team building skills is essential. I mean, it's a people's world. You have to know how to be a leader in teams. You have to know how to work in teams. If you are a business partner, you will have to work with peers. And there is no end to the extent to which you can build your soft skills. That is to be an ongoing effort.
Thanks, Kapil. Another question I would like to ask you is how important do you think planning is in one's career? Does planning actually help, or it's just take it as you go?
No. I think planning will make all the difference. As I mentioned earlier, you have to choose your sector. You have to choose your timing also. And planning, I think, is the key. It will make or break. I mean, there are so many people who have started out at the same level, and everyone has ended different. And the differentiator is what opportunities you took at what time. You have to be in a growing sector. If you stick on to a sector, which is not going to grow, nothing is going to happen to your career. I mean, I know people who are in GE, for example, and when the whole BPO boom started, they did not move out to that, and the people who moved out early were streets ahead. So you have to take the opportunities. That's where you have to know what's happening in the industry, in the world. It's very important. If you just stick to your own small domain, nothing will happen to your career for sure.
Thanks, Kapil. And Arjun, have you planned your career? Can you share your thoughts on what you have
planning
achieved?
at two levels. I think one is the day-to-day planning or a weekly planning which you do in terms of what I need to get done. Beyond that, I think there is a larger planning which probably every 3 months, every 6 months you need to kind of set back and say, what is it that I've done? Where have I come in life? Where is it that I want to be, and has whatever I've done in the last 6 months taking me there? It's very essential, and that will also lead you to doing a lot of things differently from what you've been doing, which will eventually lead you there. Networking is a great example. You could have done excellently inside the organization, but not really networked well enough. And if your eventual goal is to set up something on your own, whatever you've done in the organization may not really let you to the goal that you are leading towards. So planning is very essential at various levels.
Please.
I just remembered one very good tip I had heard from one CEO of mine. Every month update your CV. From a CEO telling that to his employees. That will make sure that you're updating your skills, you're doing something new all the time.
Thanks, Kapil. Very well said. Vikas, just one last question. How important is a career mentor in one's life? Is it a must-have, or is it a good-to-have? For professionals that are starting up right now, is a career mentor a necessity?
I would say yes, because as a role, when you're actually working within an organization, sometimes you get a little bogged down with your routine. You're not able to figure out what's really happening, whether you're really moving ahead, maybe what are the things you're not doing right. So if you have someone who actually can guide you, it need not necessarily be from your own company. It could be an outsider, it could be an elder. But if you get a mentor who can actually guide you and actually tell you about things where you can improve in a very neutral way, then I think it is always going to be positive. It is always going to have a positive impact to the person.
Thanks, Vikas. I now open the panel for a Q&A session with the audience. I request every audience member to keep the questions brief, and please mention the panelist to whom the question is being posed so that there is no ambiguity. Any questions? Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am a chartered accountant by profession and have changed jobs quite frequently, not due to my mistake, but due to circumstances and due to sometimes the plant closed down, VRS is given to the. So how important it is to explain to the employer that the career path is whatever I've gone through is not. Although the frequency, the highest number of years was only 3 years in one of the company as a GM finance accounts. Still, I am not able to convince the opposite side.
So who is the question for, sir?
Anybody who can answer me.
No, okay. So changes always happen in the career. You should be clear what you want to do. I mean, you want to be CFO, you want to be head of finance, which sector you want. So internally, if you are stable, then your span in that company will also remain more stable, I think. And people will generally understand that things happen. I mean, there are changes all the time happening. So as long as you have a credible explanation, I don't think there should be a big problem. But make sure what you want first so that your next job will be stable.
Thanks, Kapil. Any further questions? Yeah.
Hi, this is Janil here.
Yeah.
My question would be to Arjun. How did your experience in investment banking and credit rating help you as a private equity guy?
Investment banking is the other side of the story, right? You're trying to do a deal, transaction, either as a buyer or as a seller. So it gives you perspective. Essentially, as private equity people, we meet investment bankers every day. It gives you perspective as to what could have originated this deal, which as an investment banker, every day you're looking at what is out there in the world and where can you do a deal. Whereas as a private equity guy, it's a different filter that you're applying. Knowing the other side of the story always helps. Credit rating, on the other hand, I would say is a different exposure. It was a different part of the capital structure. You are always focused on risk much more than on the upside, which I think is something that in an environment like India where growth is so high, people's focus on risk goes away because growth can cover up whatever mistakes you make. But I think for investing, it is very essential that you understand risks as well as you understand growth, you understand the other aspects of investing or relationships and all these things. So that's how I would say the credit rating experience really helps me even today.
Thanks, Arjun. And one last question.
Yeah. My question is for Mr. Vikas Chadha. I would like to ask, whenever management comes up with any idea, and when CFO as a CFO or custodian of controls or legal things, when we have to say no, certain things are not permissible. How to communicate it? Because it becomes certain times a really difficult thing that certain things cannot be done in certain ways and means what they are proposing.
No, so I wouldn't say that there is always a no to everything. They come to you with an idea. So there's an idea which has a business impact and there's a revenue opportunity. Maybe there are legal implications to it. So if that can't be done, we need to provide solutions. If it's absolute, like I don't think anyone comes with the idea which is to do like we would like to do smuggling. It's not something like that. They'll come with an idea which has business. So there could be legalities. If there's a tax implication, if the tax levels are higher, you obviously pay the higher tax levels. Your margins will be curtailed, but you need to provide a solution. So I have not come across an absolutely no as a to an idea. If it's a genuine idea, at least in my experience, I haven't come across something which is like, someone coming up with a very outrageous kind of proposal saying, we would like to do with such an illegal thing. It never happened.
Because I have seen certain transactions where they are promoting like we would like to pay 2% commission to get this business or something of that sort. When your answer is certainly no, because you don't want to promote anything which is not ethical and not as per the company values and policies.
Yeah, so if the policies are well laid down, then obviously we can just refer back to them and say these are the policies of the company, and that's what we will be following. So there's no question of a no and yes. It's beyond the purview of even a CEO. It's not something in your hands. So you can't be the one overriding a policy and saying, I'm going to allow this to happen. So that's the clear cut. So if the policies are laid down, then you won't actually be diverting from the policies. But if there's an idea which is coming fresh and you have an option to actually provide a solution, then you could obviously.
Thanks, Vikas. We'll take further questions on the number provided or on Twitter because of lack of time. Sorry. I wanted to thank each of the panel members for their valuable inputs and insights on the topic, and thank you all for a patient listening. Thank you.
I would like to call on stage Mr. Amit Modi, Vice President, to give away the mementos, please. Thank you. Please give a big round of applause.
I would sincerely like to thank the amazing panel of speakers on behalf of the entire audience for the very enriching session. Thank you, sirs, and thank you, Shravan.
I can't hear the applauses. Please, loud ones. Thank you.